Incremental ratings. So, before we dig into SuperMemo, there's something to take into account. Is the learning curve of SuperMemo. So, for instance, I have Paint. It's a software that in 5 minutes I get it. I get the basics, and in I don't know 20 minutes I will have checked every single function there is, or 10 minutes top, right? In SuperMemo, it's the opposite. It will take longer to take the basic to get the basics, and it will take much longer to get most of it, to understand every single button, what it does, every functionality, how to use it, the use cases, when it's useful, the pros and cons, all of this. This takes a lot of time. So I created more or less like 6 phases of the learning curve. First, let's do some introduction to some context to get there. So SuperMemo is a powerful tool, but it's not plug and play. So the first time you use it, you open the software is, what do we do, right? Requires both time commitment and intention to master. You want to have the intention to learn how to use it. So okay, and as I said, there are distinct qualitative phases about this adoption. How familiar you are with SuperMemo. For instance, this course is about, there are 2 degrees. It's about fluency and mastery. But for the learning curve, there's more nuisance. Then, just to let you know that SuperMemo is not for everyone, but for everyone who truly wants to remember. Even that, for some people, is not for them, because of the friction and so on. Then, the first phase is the newbie excitement. Is, oh wow, I just discovered that through Google, serendipity, or someone recommended me this software or whatever, or from a community. So you download the app, it's okay, I will never forget what I wanted to. You play with Control Alt Z, Alt X, with close deletion and extract. You get the very basics. But wait, don't get too excited. Don't do a lot of cards. Start slow. Start small. Then, second phase is the confusion and overwhelm. Once you have done this, you make some extracts and consolations. Then you have a lot of material that you cannot go through. Or if you start easy enough, slow enough, you could manage that. But then it's, oh, what is this? Oh, what is that? What are all those numbers? Then you check the documentation. Oh, what is all of this? It's a never ending. It's like Wikipedia. Then you read an article and it uses so much jargon and concepts, you need to check the Wikipedia page of each one of them. And when you open that page, hands and repeat until you don't go through hundreds of pages that they reference each other. And then you finally get it. So it's overwhelming by the complexity of the software, and it's overwhelming by the content you're doing. Especially if you're a noob, you will leech. That means you will fail to remember the same flashcard because of the formulation, all of that. So basically, how do I grade the items? Or how do I prioritize? This deserves 1.1%. Why? Why not 2? Or the flow is, when do I stop reading? There's way too many questions. You feel confused and overwhelmed. So could be that motivation starts to wobble. So then tip, watch advanced users structure their workflow and mimic it just at the beginning right away. Later, when you have enough knowledge about the app and the method, then you will find your own style. But before this, you need the very basics. And then, as every powerful tool, feels unintuitive until you build mental models to wield it. And then there's an extra layer that is just bad design, or let's say, outdated design. That makes sense in the 90s or in the early 2000s, not today, but it has kept the same structure. Nice. Then the third phase, learning the system. So you begin to grasp how priorities shape learning. You need to experience it. So I can read, okay, the priorities are very important for this and that. Gotcha. Not just that, I remember this fact. I even create the flashcard for it. But until I don't see it myself, based on exposure and trial and error, that hey, after a few months, now I can see the peak of the iceberg. Then, you will also do grasp why minimum info beats dense nodes, minimum information principles, the atomicity, stuff like this, and how incremental reading creates long-term clarity. That let's say you start reading some articles incrementally, so it will take some time, natural time, because of the interruptions, and then when you have read most of the article or different articles about the same concept that you are building the big picture, is oh, now I get how you get the big picture in incremental reading. You cannot know that in 2 weeks or in a weekend. You need months to experience that. Then, the tip at this stage is to focus on the priority queue. It's your best investment. Your best investment is this priority queue. Less is more. Break it down, master it forever. That means even if you do less repetitions, you do less extracts, you read less material, but it's good quality, it's very incremental. So not good quality in the sense how it's formulated, but also how it is the workflow. That you do more minimum information principle, you follow all of this, you follow the priority queue, you spend time assessing or reassessing priorities. That's the best thing you can do at this stage. Then fourth is the mindset shift, or on most of my videos I say paradigm shift. So then you understand that forgetting is part of the learning. Because you may think that, hey, with SuperMemo, with incremental reading, I can avoid forgetting. That's not what you want. You want to cherry pick what you remember and what you forget. And actually, you desire forgetting. You want forgetting. If you want the optimum learning experience, you need forgetting. That's why incremental reading, because of the interruptions, especially when reading, you do some forgetting. This crystallizes the knowledge. It's actually a good thing. Then, another thing is that repetition is not a failure. It's reinforcement. It's an opportunity to revisit that. And hey, it's an opportunity to realize that hey, I had some memories that were conflicting, that were interfering each other, or I had a hole in knowledge that I wasn't aware of. So instead of it's a failure, it's an opportunity to revisit that. Then, accepts that deeper understanding emerges over time, the opposite of cramming. So you don't have this fear of missing out. It will come. It's just not today, incrementally with time. That's why in the third stage, you still don't get that. When you begin to grasp the concepts, here you already grasp the concept of incrementalism. Then, you embrace the power of a slow knowledge, which basically is the peak of the incrementalism. So therefore, you actually prefer the incremental approach over any other approach. So then, tip, trust the algorithm. Don't rush the intervals. A lot of people will not trust the algorithm, which is a healthy skepticism. It's because, hey, the intervals are crazy high. I'm going to forget it. Yeah, but if you wait, oh, it's a month, next year, whatever. But then you wait, the time passes, and you do the repetitions later when they are scheduled, and then you realize, hey, wait a second, my rotation rate is on the 95% or in the very high. Oops, it actually works. Then quote, you don't raise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Think about that, it's deeper than you may think. Nice. Then, the fifth phase is the flow and personalization. Now that you got the basics and the fundamentals, and also the robust, the more high-level skills of incrementalism and all of this, that's very abstract in nature. When you have acquired this, then okay, now I can make my own, adapt what's useful for you, discard what's useless, and make your experience your own, like this. So then you do your own style of incremental reading. So therefore you build your custom workflow, which could be unique to you. No one else has the precise, exact workflow. Then you design branches based on personal interest, so in your collection will be about what you want. So again, no other person on earth will have the exact same collection, the exact same articles, or more or less in the same prioritization as you, because everyone is unique. So then, you achieve that. Your collection is the closest thing you want for yourself. There's no alienation. Then, prioritizes content that aligns with long-term goals. It's not just, hey, I want to do this now, I have this goal now. And I have the recency bias, which is still common in people who are in stage 3 or even 4. You do it for the long term. That is a genuine, it's when incrementalism is not just understood, or it is internalized. Then, and learning becomes intuitive and fulfilling. Also because you don't have to think about, so SuperMemo doesn't add any layer of complexity. So if I want to do X, this translates in SuperMemo to a concept group, to set priorities, this button, this menu, and all of this. I have to think about what I need to do. It becomes second nature from the software perspective and from the method perspective for incremental reading. When I was in this phase, then I realized I have a hard time believing my past self when I was in the phase 1, 2, and 3, that how I could say it was so counterintuitive and hard to understand. It's so painfully obvious now, right? Don't read that. Then tip, use filters, search, tags in SuperMemo to relocate, improve all material. So basically, it's not what you have now, but what you accumulated since the beginning. And you are very familiar with your past self, that you are also familiar how you can communicate, write down for your future self. I have a video about incremental reading. Is just a dialogue between yourself in different times because of the because of the iterations. Every time you have more knowledge in the future. Then the beauty of SuperMemo is not in what you remember, but in what you become because of what you remember. That is a big difference. It's not that, let me memorize the, no, periodic table or the American presidents or stuff like that, I just remember, or the countries in the world. Yeah, but that's it. You memorize it. You can flex to some random person if you want that asks me something, and I will tell you the capital or whatever, and that's about it. So it's not about what you remember, it's what you become. So for instance, I have remembered a lot of things about health, about philosophy and so on. Now I'm much happier than before. My life is more fulfilling, and I'm healthier than before. Or I spend less money because of finances, and I'm more aware of this and that. So it's, hey, I have become a better version because of the knowledge I have acquired. I take better decisions in my life because of knowledge that I have, and that is what I have become. The product based on those decisions that have been better because of incremental reading. And some decisions could be like, doesn't make sense. It's not something I would have ever thought before, but now it makes more sense. That, why quit the academia when I have a guaranteed job for life? Stuff like this. Then, the sixth phase, which is the last one, is the long-term mastery. You see gains in thinking, clarity, and creativity. So the incrementalism transcends learning. It becomes your lifestyle. I also have a video on that. Incremental reading or incremental learning becomes a natural part of your daily life. It becomes part of you, meaning that if you stop, for whatever reason, you stop practicing incremental learning for a while, you will notice that something is missing, right? I can go on vacation for a week, let's say, and I don't do it. And once I come back to the home, I go back to incremental learning. But if it will be for a long period of time, is there's a part of me that is missing. Then a deeply personal knowledge archive emerges. Again, it's something very hard to demonstrate. You'll have to interview me for days and days to more or less assess the superficial knowledge in many areas I have. But it's a personal. So imagine of all of the TV shows you have watched in your life when you were a kid, and you remember the vocabulary and what you have thought each time that perhaps it was not there, but it was a trigger for something else. All of the learning steps you had because of that. I know could be like how a fish lives on the ocean, or could be whatever that appears in a TV show that, or how is what is a pet and how you treat a pet or live with a pet. Something that it may sound like stupid, but when you're a kid, it's information that is known, right? So imagine that all of this, that is good to know. You keep it in your memory. It's not that that was good and eventually it disappears most of the time. So this is one example. Then imagine every conversation you had, every movie you have watched, every meeting at work you had, any experience like even walking on the street or talking to a kid. Every single day, there are some serendipity and golden nuggets. You accumulate this, and eventually you have so much wisdom of anything that it becomes a very deeply personal knowledge for yourself. What you care, what is more applicable to you. Then you learn for life, not for tests. There are no deadlines, there are no exams, and I'll say is whatever you want to learn or you do learn, you know it will be forever, or only as long as you are healthy. Obviously, you have dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever that could erase your memory. Then, incremental learning turns memory into a creative force, and that is the key. So it's not that you can repeat information like a parrot, and that's it. That, I memorized 100,000 numbers of pi, or I memorized the entire dictionary, or whatever. No, it's something that you can turn this into something creative, have ideas, like this research and discover something new to humanity, or engine something like create AI, LLMs. Who did that, right? Many examples. Or could be more like artistic, a new way to create art, whatever, that is more expressionist. Or to realize something more philosophical way, to connect some ideas that no one else did, or whatever. Is to apply. To be creative requires to be able to apply the knowledge. That's the big difference. Then, tip. Regularly review and rephrase your flashcards. Evolve them with your growing understanding. Because this is for life. What you have done 5 years ago, perhaps that was already quite consolidated, but something that it was, let's say, that I do now, it's quite at the beginning, early stage for me. I'm a noob. Then I revisit this 5 years later, I can rephrase this to my current understanding, because now I have a lot more knowledge. So let's say now, recently, I got some supplements. But hey, now I can make better decisions that, this is crap, this is marketing, I'm not going to absorb these pills and so on. And I make better decisions because I have more knowledge. And then if I see the flashcards I did 5 years ago, I could fine tune this. That, hey, it's correct, but there's this nuisance now that I didn't have before. So I accumulate everything in the past phases. And as you can see, once you achieve that, once you have the phase 6, there's no turning back. You won't accept a life without incrementalism. Not a chance. Then, common pitfalls. By the way, I have also videos, but just videos in depth, but just as a summary. So then, final thoughts. Mastery takes time, months, not minutes. Unlike paint, remember, paint can be mastered in 10 minutes. Yep, but again, you also hit the ceiling. What you can do with paint is quite limited, right? So imagine Duolingo or Quizlet. Oh yeah, I have flashcards at some degree in Quizlet, and I get it in 10 minutes. But what I can do with this tool is also very limited. So the more power you have, the longer it will take. And then mastery on top of that is not just knowing how to use it, but master how to use it. It requires, I should say, let me rephrase it, well, years. Then the learning curve, which this video is about, is very steep. So you have the 6 phases. You can more or less do the phases like they are belts in martial arts. So to go to the black belt, it's a big deal. So it's not like some linear flow that more or less from the phase 1 to the 2 is the same difficulty or the time required from the second to the third. No, it's exponential. Each time it requires more and more time and expressed in a different perspective. At the beginning, you have to put a lot of time for a very little reward. So, hey, I have spent a month, I know let's say 100 hours, and I only learn how to create flashcards, how to review them, how to apply templates, pim pam, and that's it. It's, oh wow, I put a lot of effort, but the outcome is very little, right? But later it will be opposite, that I have learned almost nothing new, how to use SuperMemo or the incremental reading. It's just my own practice, my own trial and error, and the experience to see the long-term effects of what I have decided back then. Oh, I did Mercy last year, and you see the effects long-term. This is what is going to increase your learning and to move to the next phase. So every time you learn less features or less facts about the software or the method, it's just the practice how to use it. Then SuperMemo is a tool of transformation, not just retention. You remember what we said. That is not about what you remember, but what you become of what you remember. And you're not just memorizing. You are growing a second brain. And please, don't think this second brain in the sense of Tiago Forte. No, it's not the same thing. Second brain is not to have a collection that you just have a container, that you put content, that is searchable. And then by queries, you rely on, in the future, to query and get the result. Second brain in the sense that the computer will have all you need, all you want to process, to read in order to learn. But you will be discarding what you have already learned and only keep the flashcards to keep it in your long-term memory. So you're actually deleting content that you won't be able to search. So it's a big nuisance. Then, you will either use SuperMemo for a week or a few days or for the rest of your life. There are cases that people move on after a few years, yes. But most of the time is, what is this? I give up, or I have a challenge, or eventually you give up, or you do it off and on, but you every time use it for a week or for a very short period of time, that you are still in the first phase, then you become the second, or you're confused, and you never reach the third phase. Meaning that once you achieve the third phase, you're going to use it for the rest of your life. So it will still time to evolve to the fourth, fifth, and sixth, but it will do for the rest of your life. And here I say SuperMemo, but should I say incremental reading? So even if later there are some other apps, for now there's none, that implements incremental reading, you will use incremental reading for the rest of your life. You just need to go through that, which is a big deal for many people. So, That has been everything about the learning curve of SuperMemo, and more or less a very good statement why you should go through this learning curve, because of the end goal. It's massive. That's all for now. See you incrementally.